Welcome to the eCom Colab Club podcast, where operators, risk takers, and battle-tested founders drop the lessons that cost them time, money, and their sanity, and share what actually works so you don't have to pay the same price. Hosted by Peter Gardner and Adam Pierce, founders of the eCom Colab Club and Blend Commerce, the Shopify CRO agency, and proudly sponsored by OmniSend. Email and SMS marketing so good, it's boring.
Hey, welcome back to the eCom Colab Club podcast. It's the place where we don't really do vanilla, and we definitely don't do corporate work speak. We get straight into the good stuff, and for a lack of better terms, a direct way, just like it should be. Today we've got Rich Evans joining us here in place of Adam. So our wonderful new intro video there we just played was wrong for the very first time. Very great to have you. Thanks very much for jumping on in Adam's place, Rich Evans.
I can do the accent if you want. I can. All right, Dad. How are we doing?
Oh, that was, yeah. Maybe
no. I'll bend it. Okay.
All right. Today we've got Cameron Goldie from Grenade. Cameron is pretty much the one running the data and running the tech, and he's the e-commerce director. I think I have your title wrong there. Sorry, Cameron.
You might have just promoted him. I think he's the head of e-commerce.
Head of e-commerce. There we go.
He should be an e-commerce director there. Let's see if we can make that happen by 11 o'clock.
Yes. Big push. Everybody love this video. Let's get Cameron promoted. And then after Cameron jumps off with us, we'll be jumping into a bit of a debrief, Rich and I, maybe trying to act smart and speak a little bit about the clever stuff that Cameron's going to speak about today. And then we'll end the podcast after that. So without further ado, Hey, retailers and e-commerce brands, this event is for you. Join us at Retail Fest 2025 on the sunny Gold Coast in Aussie from the 28th to the 30th May. You'll meet industry experts, network with fellow business leaders, and pick up simple yet effective strategies to grow your brand. Think of it as a relaxed chat with the best in the business, where you'll leave with useful tips you can put into action straight away. Don't wait. Get your tickets now at retailglobal.com.au. Retail Fest 2025 is where the future of retail happens. There you go. Let's get Cameron into the middle.
Good morning, guys. How you getting on? You okay?
Are we all good? Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I'm all good. It's my pleasure to be here. Obviously, had a bit of a LinkedIn intro from Rich, which scared me a little bit, but very, very excited to talk to you guys and hopefully share some bits of wisdom, or potentially not wisdom. We'll see.
That's what I aim for, to instill fear into the brains of people that I'd love to be speaking to. So yeah, glad that hit home for you.
Yeah, spot on. Cheers.
Well, I'm gonna jump straight in then. So in terms, imagine Grenade, the movie, and you are obviously the e-commerce superhero within that. If you could pick one fictional character from any book, TV series, film that would play your role as head of e-commerce in Grenade the movie, who would it be?
It's a very good question. And do you know what? I ponder over this. I'd say Rocky Balboa, which is a bit of a wild card, bit of a random one. However, I very much feel that represents sort of the role I played in previous e-commerce and overall B2B businesses, but also Grenade. And I think that's a case of, look, believe in what you're doing, put the work in, push forward, and then hopefully people join along on the way and go, oh, he's doing it, so we'll follow along. So Rocky Balboa is the character I would pick.
Okay. And so continuing with that theme then, what's your Adrian? What's your go-to when you're on the ropes and you're like, performance is down or stats are down? Are you screaming, better? Or where do you go to when you're on the ropes? What's your Adrian? I'm reaching because, little known fact, never seen Rocky. which I know is going to be controversial, but I've seen the memes and the GIFs. So,
Rich, you need to go and watch it.
I was just going to say, how have you not seen Rocky, Rich? That's a shocker, that is. But my Adrian moment would be, I think it's calm in the storm, really, for me. You know, eCom, especially in FMCG, it's hard work. And look, you're waking up every day, you've got your plan of action, your to-do list, and it's like, oh, fuck, well, that's completely changed because Google have changed a policy, or ad spend's gone through the roof because you've got a competitor on your brand. So it's resolved and it's calm in the storm. Thankfully, I do have a really good partner, my version of Adrian as well. So it's quite nice to lean on for my solace. But in this sort of eCom wisdom space, it's calming down, looking at the data and making sure we make informed decisions for the business, really, for me.
I think I've got now like the image of you running up the steps, but them just never ever ending. Because that's the other thing I think with e-commerce and marketing in particular, there's just never an end. Like by the time you finish rolling out one strategy or one new sort of ad set, there's another update or like everything's changed, the algorithm's changed again, so you go again. So you never actually get to that moment where you reach the top. It's just a constant sort of stream, isn't it?
I totally agree. And it almost feels like I read a book a couple of years back called Never Finished. And I think everyone's got this Havana, you know, you get to a certain age, you retire, you sit on the beach, you sip in cocktails. It's like, do you know, that's quite boring if you think about that. You know, I go away for a week, 2 weeks, and I'm like, right, I need to go on a run. I need to look at my eCom. What are my figures doing? What's the environment doing? And I think that's why eCom suits me. And that's why I referenced Rocky Balboa. It's like, you get to the dance, you become state champion. I'm nowhere near that yet. But, you know, we were all contenders at some point fighting for that share. And that's every day in eCom, right? You know, you're looking at it thinking it's an uphill battle. And if you don't face it, the irony is you get left behind. And that's what I like so much about eCom is you've got to make decisive decisions every day, every week, every month. And you've got to live and die by the sword, right?
Absolutely.
So Karen, let's jump into the topic for today a bit. We're here to talk about data-driven marketing decisions, right? So a lot of brands would say, yep, we're data-driven. This is what we're doing. But ultimately, they're just chasing vanity metrics. Very good at pronouncing these big words here today. Where do brands totally screw up here? Well, you know, what are they trying to do but not doing when trying to make these data-driven marketing decisions?
Two bits I'd pick out there, and the two that you hear all the time: sessions. So just calling out sessions as a pure vanity metric. I want active sessions, engaged sessions. I also feel like mailing list size for me is an interesting one because it's almost e-commerce dick swinging, to be honest. You know, you speak to the brands, you go, my mailing list this size. It's like, well, yeah, it might be huge, but what are you actually doing with it? And who's actively engaged? What are those active engagers doing in terms of behavior? And are you bringing that to the forefront? Or are you just growing a list to go, my list's bigger than yours? Because you do see that a lot. And I think you can end up overspending. You can end up not talking to the right customers purely based on their two almost leading vanity metrics. I mean, they're very, very important. I must say that. But yeah, I'd say those are the two I call out there, is sessions and mailing list in terms of just overall size.
Yeah. Just I love the analogies that you're giving there with this mailing list size. Would you say that that's probably the most misleading marketing metrics as well, or do you think there's another one that's maybe a little bit more misleading in terms of what you're doing with data, with marketing?
I was tempted to sort of say ROAS because that's the first one I was going to jump into and say, look, return on ad spend can be hugely misleading if you're not using your attribution correctly. But then if I look into that, ROAS, if used and harnessed correctly, can be your secret weapon against brands, competitors, specifically in such a competitive environment. So again, I say it's a bit of a double-edged sword referring to ROAS, but mailing list growth would be the vanity metric I call out there.
Cool. So could you give us a real world example within one of your roles that you've done and you've gone, okay, cool, we've got this data, then it's gone, well, hell, we've got to go against conventional marketing sort of wisdom here. And, what was that insight and how did you go about doing that?
Absolutely. So for myself, in all of the roles I've faced, I've always been in competitive environments. So I sort of talk about Amazon, they are best in market at eCom in terms of just the value, delivery, price and all that sort of stuff. I've also worked with businesses that sort of have the 3PL presence. And I think within both of those environments, you really got to differentiate your value proposition. So I go back to what are the misleading facts, figures. Gift with purchase, I jump into. So a lot of people would look at a gift with purchase and go, why on earth would my customer want that? The data doesn't suggest we should do this. For example, we had a stint last year, I think it was in June, July time, where we said, look, actually, we want to give away products for free. And you look at me instantly and you go, you want to give products away for free? Well, what's that do to your bottom line? What's that do to your overall health of your ecosystem? Because there's people that spent good money on your products. What does it say overall? And actually, you look at AOV stats, you look at customer acquisition. We held when we gave away that product. And I think it's very much believing in repurchase. So when we did give away these free products, initially it's like, they're free, completely free. Repurchase came back round. 12% of those customers have come back round and purchased with us. So it's almost a bit of a Wild West in terms of there's no data to back giving away product for free, but we backed ourselves, we backed our product. And ultimately that turned out to be quite a nice little lever. And we've continued to practice that to this day.
Yeah, I mean, like when you get the CFO involved, they'll probably be looking at like, why the hell are you giving away this product? And
yeah, exactly.
what you're talking about there, I actually was just listening to a podcast this morning, Modern Wisdom, and Rory Sutherland was on it, and he was talking about how AO gives away when they're doing a delivery. That will, if they're doing a delivery and they've got a kid in the house, they give them a free teddy bear. Nice. It's obviously branded with AO on it. And he was saying it's like when they were picking apart like things that they were doing, that was one of the things that people were going, well, why the hell do you just give away this? And they went, look, it's one of the things we do. We know that it actually works. We don't have data that actually tells us it works, but we know it works. And they just haven't got rid of it. And they continue to do that. Like all their delivery drivers still give away these teddy bears. So it's interesting to hear that you do the same thing.
I love that reference. And I think another piece I picked up Rory Sutherland was talking about was the Five Guys fries analogy. And I don't know if you guys have sort of heard of this one. So you've got your sort of really small bucket of fries, you got your brown paper bag. And I'm like, why are these guys giving me an absolutely astronomical amount of fries? Because they want you to come out of that store and go, they didn't need to do that, but they did. And I think it's leaving the customer with that. Why did they do that? That doesn't make sense to me. But sometimes it doesn't need to make sense to be a great sort of marketing activation tool. And I think Rory Sutherland stands for that, doesn't he? I mean, he's awesome in some respects. I mean, think if I went full Rory Sutherland, as you said, Pete, my CFO, might go, what on earth are you doing? But there's a balance in there, isn't there? There's a perfect art.
It's just these little soft touches, and you've got to have that as a brand. You've got to be able to do that. But unfortunately, like you say, it's very difficult to measure in the moment. You've got to be able to go, in hindsight, like you've done, you've gone, okay, well, 12 months later, how many of those customers have we retained? How did that compare to the customers we weren't giving gifts to? And then you go, okay, well, we were retaining at 6%. Now we're retaining at 12%. Fuck, the free giveaway definitely works. Let's carry on doing it.
Totally. And I feel like that S&D space, a surprise and delight for me, is exactly where you plonk that. I mean, we are doing more this year in terms of that. It just plonking mystery bars in, whatnot, you can get more targeted with it. Yeah. But that surprise element will give you surprise data because you are what you measure at the end of the day. And if you're measuring conversion profitability, you can't really measure surprises, can you? So it's a case of do it, see what happens, and measure the results afterwards.
Is that surprises as in like, hey, we've given you this other product and maybe it's one of your sticky products that people come back for? Or is it like, they've ordered 6, let's give them 7, and they'll just think that they've scored?
Bit of both. So I think the first one is just like, look, they've ordered X bar, chuck another bar in, get the customer to try it. It's all we can do, really. And in our minds, we've got a really good trial to conversion to actually go to purchase. So we've got confidence in the product, put that in the customer's hands. Where I do see that sort of surprise element coming in, look at your Liquid Deaths, your Yetis of this world, and they're doing such random stuff online. And again, go back to your Rory Sutherland, he'd be like, hell yeah, let's do it. You go back to sort of your, I don't know, CIM coursework, university framework. It's like, surprising to that. What are you talking about? So you've got to create those moments. And I think there's definitely more premise for brands to be linking up with the social teams, the marketing teams, and going, it might not drive profitability, but it will drive eyeballs. It will drive engagement. And it'll drive a want to be maybe curious about your brand. I think, that's it's a really exciting thing to be a part of. And you can't really put a value on it, I don't think.
No. Have you had any moments of customers writing to you to say, hey, you gave me this extra thing here, like, do you want me to return it?
Do you know what? I have. So we it's really interesting. So at Christmas, we thought we want to give back to our customers. We did a seasonal product, our gingerbread bar. We had a gingerbread man campaign. It's dead cool. And sort of at Christmas, I'm saying to our team, what can we do to give back? So I'm like, right, let's get a load of Christmas cards printed. We got, I think it was 100 in the end. I sat in my office, like handwriting Christmas cards to our top customers, send them out of $3. And then I think our customer experience team got a note through saying, why on earth have you sent me this free stuff? I don't want this. What's this? And you're like, oh, goodness me, we're only trying to be nice. But look, 99% of customers will go, that's really nice. That's a surprise. I think that was purely a shock because they're probably thinking, wasn't expecting this. It's not on my order account history. Have I paid for this? What's going on? So it's getting the balance right. And maybe there's a bit more sort of informing the customer that's going to come. That's a lesson for the next time. But we have certainly had a bit of kickback when we're just trying to be nice.
I think there's, you are not far. You're based in the Midlands. You're not far from Spudman. Are you aware of Spudman?
Who's Spudman? No, he's Spudman.
Spudman, he's based in Tamworth, and he's a revelation. The guy's got infinite reach on TikTok, and basically he is the owner of a spud van, and he's called Spudman, and he attaches a camera to himself, and he serves spuds all day, and then he'll just go, that one's on me, mate. Or like he had this thing where someone bought him an Uno reverse card, and he'd give him a fiver with his spud instead of charging him for it. And I think he now brings more people to Tamworth than the Snow Dome does. Like people will queue just in case they end up on the stream, they get gifted and things. And I think I see brands like High Smiles sort of tapping into that sort of streaming, then packing orders. Tell us your order number and we'll stream it on TikTok as we pack it. And then occasionally, the bloke that's doing it is like, right, so it's one of them, and let's chuck in 2 of them as well, sort of thing. And I think then there's that sort of thing of people will be ordering on the basis that they might just get the surprise and delight. So I like a surprise and delight. I'm a big pro surprise and delighter.
I totally agree. And do you know what? I didn't know he was called Spudman, but I constantly get the videos served on my YouTube shorts and whatnot. And you just can't help but watch, can you? It's like the size of the portions, the randomness of the interactions. You're like, I'm just curious. I don't know why I'm watching this bloke in a spud van sort of serving up maybe, it could be cheese and beans, it could be tuna, whatever. But it's just interesting, isn't it? And I don't really know why. Maybe it's that surprise element, that mystery to it. It piques your interest, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Spudman versus Tamworth Borough Council is one of my favourite things at the moment. Like he's got a petition with 100,000 signatures because they're trying to replace him with a flower bed and move into a different bit. Anyway, we could probably talk about Spudman. Maybe we should do a Spudman episode and get him on. Or maybe not. So last month at eCom Colab Club, we hosted 2 panels, and it was like the data Deathmatch, qualitative versus quantitative. Obviously, quantitative in a business of grenade size and stuff, you will be constantly analyzing the numbers, and you talked about repeat order rates and ROAS and things like that. how do you use more like qualitative data, so like customer behavior sort of measurement? Do you use heat maps, session recordings? Do you do surveys? So you mentioned about the VIPs and sending them the Christmas card. Do you ever get on the phone to them? Like, what do you do from a qualitative data point of view?
We do a bit at the moment, so standard customer surveys, outreach, bit of NPS, whatnot, which has really helped sort of, I guess, inform certain decisions. A big part of my role moving into this year, next year, the year after, is around interacting with our customers and essentially using, we're going to jump around a bit here, but using AI to fast track customer experience. So then my customer experience team can start to get a bit more curious about what are customers doing? What are they doing online? But what are they doing offline? And I think that's where the biggest synchronicity comes in. So a sort of big believer of Simon Sinek, reason why you've got to find out. For us at Grenade, you know, we sell protein bars. We do a great job of that. We know that. Biasly, we've got the best protein bars. They're absolutely bloody amazing. But what people cannot take away from us is our why. And that's the customer, and that's the guys that started the brand. And I sort of go to our head of product, he's been here from the start of the journey. You go to our head of brand, been here from the start of the journey. What you'll see is synchronicities in what they've plonked in and weaved throughout the brand in customer interaction. So you go to an offline event, you get talking to someone about sort of, why do you like protein bars? Well, actually, I gain quite a lot. I enjoy taking my protein bar when I'm gaming. And that's the audience that we're talking to. And you find these niche pockets. So I suppose the difference in the two data is, look, quantitative, we've got it coming out of our ears, and it can almost be overwhelming. When you look at that human interaction and you look at sort of survey elements, that's where you find the niche pockets. I do think it's quite important to know what you're asking for, though, because we had a bit of a BB with a loyalty survey a couple of years back. We basically went out to our lawyers and said, what do you like about our program? The questions were quite pre-formatted. So we went out, we're like, we're going to find out loads here. We didn't. We just found out what we already know they were using through the data, which was, we love free shipping. So I think it's quite important to understand what you're aiming to understand from your customers. But yeah, I think it's really important to just interact and bring that vision to life and sort of loop it back to that surprise and delight element. You know, if you're going to surprise people, you need to ask them what they'd like and just go out on a bit of a whim. So I sort of hope that answers the question with the jumping around a little bit.
No, you definitely did. And I think it came up on the sort of panel, and it was Jodie when she was at Birchbox, and she said that I love the free type box. So like any post, I love the other section. And especially now AI kind of makes it far less laborious, and you can just load it in there and you can see what the common trends are in the answers that you're not pre-forming. Yeah. Because it is, you've got to pre-form answers, at the sizes of the data that you'll be sending it out to and stuff. You can't be sat there, working through the different sort of answers and the properties and tagging them and things. But I do love like a session in a none of the above pre-type section and some of the sort of beauties. And she sort of said, like, I think the Birchbox example was one of the reviews or the questions was like, love Birchbox, bought it for my granddaughter, but it just keeps coming every month and I keep getting charged. And so just hadn't clocked at all that it was a subscription thing. And that sort of triggered a whole piece of work over like, are we being like blatant enough with this? Do we like to anyone that's like, well, yeah, even I know, I've never been a Birchbox customer. I know that's what it is. But it did trigger then that sort of wider piece of work to go in and look. And so I think I do like where a little bit of qualitative actually then drives the next round of quantitative questions and things. Yeah.
Totally agreed. It's like, it's almost a bridge to be curious. And I just jump in there to say, there's almost a buyer's high just after checkout. So they've gone through your store, had that journey with you, they're a big fan of the brand. Put a little question box right at the end of the checkout. And to your point, Rich, you'd be surprised what customers tell you. I mean, sometimes they might tell you doing an awful job and you need to pick that up and sort it out. But the nuggets you get in there and then using AI tools going, hold on a second, we didn't even know that about ourselves, or we weren't making that so obvious. It's dead interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big like user of Triple Whale, other attribution tools are available. But they drop that sort of post-purchase thing right in that. So you've put it in, and just before it takes you to the confirmation page, it's like, what led you to order here today? And yeah, that I love that sort of how it then can trigger a whole sort of piece of, well, actually, we didn't even know that we were appearing there, or we didn't know that that person had done a YouTube video about us. But we've had 10 mentions in the last hour. Let's go and find it and let's share it and let's do something with it. So I think you've answered one of my other questions with a couple of the roles that you said about, like the head of product and one of the others in there. How do you make sure that your marketing team, I'm sure, have just grown exponentially and have probably come in from other roles and are very data driven and chasing numbers? How do you keep them understanding that customer psychology that sort of started with the tank driving through the streets and those things? Is it with those sort of key sort of pillars that have been there from the start and really understood and were speaking to every customer?
It's got to be, and I think any part of we've just gone through a round for our sort of new CRM manager, and it's always starting with first who, then what. So when I'm speaking to people around the brand, they're sort of talking a bit about onboarding. It's all about, for me, I really do embody the Grenade ecosystem. You know, you sort of got the hook line, get shit done. I love running far distances. I love going out in the rain when it's pissing it down and going on a run. People call me a bit weird for it, but that's what Grenade's about. It's those become uncommon amongst the uncommon. And what's really interesting is what we had as our founder sort of 15 odd years ago, had an idea, wanted to make the best sort of bar, because he sort of had a gym background. Ironically, the gym that he used to work at, the Mondelez office, the Bourneville office, is literally across the road. He had that vision. He said first who, then what, which was, I mean, the guys that started the brand, they're excellent, but they embody who Grenade are now. So to your point there, Rich, you know, is asking these guys the questions. And when you go through onboard and you go through marketing, you'll have these guys constantly drilling down the why. And it's so important for us, you know, you see with a lot of brands, it's almost becoming the jack of all trades. I don't think you can do that and have a standout brand. You've got to really talk about that why. And why is the tanks, it's the stunts, it's the doing the uncommon and surprise and delight. You know, what are Grenade doing that for? And then you're like, that's why they've done it, because it represents you, and it's sort of crossover a bit. Dana White from the UFC sort of calls out yourselves holy shit moments, and that's what you try and create with a brand like this. It's like, whoa, that's very interesting. Now I want to get involved. So it's resonating that why throughout everything we do, really.
And keeping with the chocolate factory image, without, you know, whilst keeping your sort of Willy Wonka hat on and not giving away all of the secrets, what would be the one underrated piece of qualitative data that you think has shaped Grenade marketing decisions?
Having the right people in the right seats, constantly upholding that sort of that brand. That's exactly what we need to do. So if I'm hosting an eCom KPI session, QBR or whatnot, I need all the right stakeholders in the room and making sure that, you know, someone turns around and says, financially, that's not quite the right thing to do. Okay, fine, let's talk about it. But then someone's in there in the background going, but this represents us. And we've done this a million times over, and we know where this journey goes, which is creating something that's different. So it's sort of having the two opinions in the room, really. But I lean on those people that started the brand because they talk to our super loyal base. They sort of created it. They're the why. That's the data we need, essentially. Resonating that in every single employee in the business. And look, I'm lucky to say, you know, we're 100 plus now. Every single person believes in that mentality, and it creates a very unique environment to work within, really.
Cameron, you mentioned, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, you spoke about the vanity, I was struggling with that word again, the vanity metrics. My word, we're gonna make a little...
You're gonna die on the vanity. That's something that you're gonna get it on a t-shirt. You also referenced vanity as a big word earlier. It's one of the smallest.
so big. Like a lot of people, and we know this, that they focus on let's get more customers, instead of going, hey, let's get the right customers. People will be like, yeah, let's just get them. First time buyers, cool, let's get them. how do you use data to attract high value buyers instead of just somebody that's going to come in for a one-hit wonder, basically?
It's a really good question. And I think for me, the back, if you've got the data, has got to lead the front. So look at your lag measures as opposed to your lead measures, really, which is everyone's going to call out CLV. You know, it's a buzzword, CLV. Yes, CLV is a buzzword, but where's that CLV coming from? And look, not to call out specific sort of percentage stats, but there will be a base of customers within your ecosystem that are driving the bloodline of your business. It's finding them, but it's also identifying at what point in the journey they're ready to be taught to. And sort of got mentors, Marketing and Hammersley, they're dead interested to talk about sort of brutal facts of e-commerce. And, you know, I tailor that journey, I move it forward and I go, well, you've got a loyalty segment. You imagine you walk into a shop, you know, your local suit tailor, walking in, I could become a loyal customer, but the sales assistant straight away comes up to me and goes, do you want to buy a pair of trousers? I'm like, well, no, I'm not ready for that whatsoever. I'm not ready to convert. I'm not even ready to talk to you. And I think going back to that, the back leading the front, you've got to understand where the intent's coming in, what the customer wants to do at that point. And if that's just a session that comes on and goes, well, tell us a bit about you so we can curate the content throughout the journey. Cool. It's fine. You're not at that point, but it's using the data you've already got for me to inform the journey and reverse engineering it. If you're lucky enough to have good data, because a lot of people might not be in that position.
Yeah. Are you guys using any tools, or have you used some of your roles like NPS? Are you using any net promoter scores? Well, the NPS, what about jobs to be done? You know, are you guys using any of those sort of tools to get this information on how to do this?
We are. So we're sort of using CDPs. We're also using Trustpilot, monitoring NPS. And again, just making sure, I suppose, we're asking the right questions at the lead of the journey to then inform the journey throughout. And there's loads of good tools out there. And there are also loads of maybe not so good tools out there. So it's making sure, again, I suppose it's like negotiation, right? You know, you go and you negotiate. You need to understand what you're going in looking for. And I do think that's the same with the customer data and the tool set you're using. What are you actually looking to do? Improve customer experience. Okay, how do you do that? Understand what's going wrong now, correct it, but measure how you're correcting it.
Cool. And then how do you guys diagnose or fix an underperforming acquisition channel? Do you guys, you know, are you constantly going, this one's under where we should be, and then we're going to go and find that data and then fix this? Or are you going, hey, that one's underperforming, let's just drop it and just double down on another one? What's your guys' balance like?
That's a good question. It's hard to say, and it differentiates per channel, because for me, there's a couple of bits going on. Is the content right you're pushing out there on the channel, and are customers engaging? You know, does it represent you? When they're coming to the site, I think there's quite you see it with bigger brands sometimes. You look on these brand sites and you're like, it's lovely, it looks amazing, but we're not in the business of building the sexiest site in the world, right? You know, we want a site that's functional, gives customer experience, but it works and it does the job to be done. And then the way they're filtering through to the mailing list. So in my mind, I'd probably use, is the interaction right with the ad set or the sort of paid media channel you're using? How are they interacting when they get on the site? So are we serving them the right thing? You know, you've got various tools that can tell you, you serve them something they didn't like that, or they interacted with it. And then again, the biggest part for me is that sort of lag measure, really coming through your CDP to say, what's their performance over time, and where are we sort of talking to them in that journey? Because if the lead time's 50 days and you're serving them in 10 days, a subscription app, for example, you're going to look at it and go back to my store analogy, you're not ready for that. So I suppose if understanding the limitations of channels, Meta's a great example. You know, listen to Paul Silton, I might be getting that wrong, at a THG conference, and he's metadata scientist talking about the way they're going more into predictive modeling. You've got to understand that as part of your marketing, because otherwise you'll kick back Meta ROAS, you'll go, 30 ROAS on that. That's brilliant, lovely. We'll spend more. And then you realize the lag measures and the attributions absolutely wrong, overspend. You got someone on your back going, can't have more budget because you're not spending your budget sensibly. So it's understanding the channels for what they're worth. understanding your touch points, what you're trying to do. And then it's a constant tweak. I mean, we measure paid daily, we measure it weekly, but we'll change it monthly if we need to.
Awesome. So you touched a bit on there on one of the next ones that I wanted to ask you. How are you guys, and you know, if you could share your little golden nuggets of how you guys do this, how do you guys pressure test a new ad or a new channel? Like, what are you guys doing before you go and dump a boatload of cash onto that ad, or you know, what is your guys' strategy to test the water?
Yeah, so for me, it's making sure, first off, it's quite an interesting process actually. Our brand guys resonate with the ads. So we're putting out content that represents our why. You know, again, we don't want to be a jack of all trades. Is this going to take the customer's attention? Is it not? Does it work for the customer? And I don't want to take credit from a paid media specialist because she is awesome and she does a lot of this hard work. But it's making sure the creative team, brand team, and also your paid media specialists are pumping out content that you feel works, and you're listening to your audience, whether it's UGC, whether it's heavy branding, and you know, you got to experiment with that mix. In terms of trial and ad sets, again, I go back to your sort of CDP, your data pool. Try it with customers you know are interacting, or try it at the right time to look at your pockets in the windows that you should serve the ad. If you're going to serve an ad, it's going to be successful to that audience group. You've got your best chance to go with the flow of the river. And I think it's very difficult if you're trying something new with a really wide pool. You probably get better data quicker, but you'll burn a lot of money to find out what's working. So it depends at what budget level you're working with. If you got a tighter budget, start with lower level audiences, see what sticks, scale up. If you've got a big budget, well, look, burn some money and see what works. You'll learn quite quickly, but we all know you may spend a lot of money with certain channels quite quickly as well.
Yeah, I suppose it's like going to a casino. You can win quickly if you bet big. But, ultimately, you could also lose it all in one go too.
Yeah.
You mentioned they're trying to test it on the audience that you guys know works. How are you guys segmenting your customer data? Are you guys using things like RFM segmentation or anything like that?
Yeah, so we do use RFM. We also use a bit of AI to sort of create affinity segments and just bucket really sort of predictability. So putting customers in groups essentially to say, this is their behavioral sort of habits, so we can serve the customer at the best point possible. But equally, what should that frequency look like moving forward? And again, there's quite cool tools now. It's like, is the customer ready to meet you there? No, they're not. So therefore, send the content at this time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually read something the other day. Google's discovered that the typical buying cycle is no longer funnel shaped. It's more of like what they call a playground. They'll find you somewhere. You don't know where they're going next. They'll go to another platform. They'll then get an email from you. And ultimately, they'll end up on Instagram and they'll see an influencer pumping your product. And then they'll come back and buy. It's become so unpredictable about where that customer's coming from. And as Rich touched on triple earlier, it's about creating this playground of where people can find you and talk to you and understand what they're doing. And I found that really interesting. And I think the magic number is about 9 touches before it's like, okay, we're ready to buy now. Cool.
So on that, I mean, you're into my sort of wheelhouse now, retention. And I'm also very aware that the most controversial that has happened 38 minutes in on this podcast is me saying I've never watched Rocky. So I feel like I want to throw the cat amongst the pigeons and get some of the more controversial sound bites nailed down. So retention is obviously critical, like, in a consumable business like yours. And we all know most brands are trash at it. They just go and pay to sell again and again and again and again. So do you think, what's the hard retention truth that you've either witnessed as a consumer or in any sort of competitor analysis that most e-commerce brands don't want to hear?
There's 2 bits, and I've got a live example, which is really, really interesting to me. So I went up to an event probably about 6 months ago, really excited for it. It's at Oxo Tower, great audience. These like eCom directors, heads up. They all should really know their shit. I asked a few simple questions and I put out to the audience, do you understand your sort of CLTV, but also your profitability? And as I was going through this chain of questions, I could see sort of there were a couple of hands at the start. I was thinking, right, I've got a bit of engagement here. After about 10, 15 seconds, I was like, oh, not many people actually understand the profitability and the CLV, and then how to drive that outwardly to actually remarket and pump your marketing out there. So for me, the controversy would fall into is 3 KPIs I call out. Understand your CAC, don't overinflate it. What profit can you make? But what is your customer lifetime value? And it honestly, it freaks me out a little bit when you speak to people in the industry and you go, you don't know your lifetime value. Well, how are you going to inform decisions from the point of a customer's come onto the site and then you just forget about them? Like, what are you doing? What you do? That's the bloodline. So I think for me, it's the surprise that people don't quite know the numbers. It's worrying, really, because how you're spending, how you're forming any of your decisions.
Yeah, I taught someone the difference between, taught someone the responsible for paying the money for it, the difference between customer acquisition cost and new customer acquisition cost. And like, I just, it baffles me, and I will die on that attribution triple whale sort of hill of, and attribution platforms are available. Of like, you've got to understand what's going on before you judge anything as a success. Like, oh, you know, we've brought customer acquisition cost down to £22. Like, yeah, but your LTV for the next 6 months is only £39, and I'm assuming you have to pay people to make this product. So yeah, I hear you, and most people like, and I think the other thing, and so we do a lot of audits of CRM strategies and stuff. And I am sick of getting to a post-purchase strategy and the post-purchase strategy existing of 1 hour after order. Thank you for your order. The end. So
Done.
Can you just, for everybody else out there, save me having to repeat it on every audit call, I could just soundbite this up and send it out. Cameron said, this is what the perfect 30 days after a consumer's first purchase look like.
I'm going to have to reverse engineer the question a slight bit, because I do truly believe, I go back to Rich's point earlier, you know, we're in a playground. A couple of tools I've seen, you know, you've got your white pairs of trainers, for example. There's so many different ways they come to their white pair of trainers. What we need to understand is how have they come to buy the white pair of trainers or protein bar? What have they engaged with on our site? Because look, if someone's coming and they're a real athlete, it's functional, they're buying protein shakes, that's what they want to do. You might serve them some endurance content post-purchase, but they just want product. Get that to them with ease. That's the job to be done. But then you tail out, and the ideal sort of post-purchase journey is using the information they've given you prior to the purchase, understanding it, and curating that individually. You know, you imagine you get 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 sessions to your site. And to your point, Rich, you know, you're looking at it, you go, well, hold on a second, I'm going to serve them all the same journey. You see how many different people go into your high street shops. It's like, I need something totally different. And then it's just a blanket. This works because it's best practice eCom. And it's like, no. Curate that journey. So I'd say it's just asking the right questions. You know, you talked about post-purchase upsell, but then weave out some test and learn. You know, tell them a bit about your founder. Tell them a bit about valuable content. Maybe put a free gift with purchase in, see how they interact. Surprise and delight. Okay, what did they do off the back of that? There are so many different bits and bobs you can do with that post-purchase journey. So if I was to blanket, I'd probably turn around and say, ask your customer, what do they want, and serve that best possible in the 30 days. Because if it's rubbish, if it becomes blatantly obvious, you're just trying to go buy something more, you're going to lose that confidence and trust because you're not serving or meeting the customer where they want to be met. So I got a bit passionate. I was like, yeah.
No, but you've hit the nail on the head, and I'll give you a real world example. Like, I am not an athlete, which that might be another one of those, my God, really moments. I'm an overweight 40-year-old guy that struggles to be active enough and stuff. I eat grenade bars. And I eat grenade bars because if I've got a grenade bar when I start a 2-hour drive, which I live in North Devon, so everything is 2 hours away. if I eat that and the first 10 minutes of that drive, it will stop the temptation to stop at a services and get a meal deal or get anything else or get anything bad. And also, if I've bought it, it means I'm not going to be paying services costs for the same grenade bar and things. So if you send me a post-purchase email that says, they're on the way, get ready to smash it at the gym or train for your next marathon or something, you completely alienate me and actually make you feel a little bit silly for buying and things.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think absolutely understanding my goals and understanding my need for purchase with zero party data before it is a great start. And then, okay, so you've got those segments then. You've got the sort of goal getters. So, the fat guys, the athletes, the runners. How do you then personalize retention strategies? And what have you seen move the needle most?
It's a good question. I've got to be careful not to give away too many secrets. That said, it's serving them what they want. I mean, that sounds really simple, but it's like, look, what do you want to see? We'll serve it to you. Okay, you liked it. The expression I use there, it's simple, but it's not easy. So it's almost isolated it from a serve the right content, it will work. If your customers want a differentiated value proposition when they first purchase, give them it. If they want surprise and delight, give them it. And what you'll get, I mean, look, I'm not saying give away everything, do everything your customers ask for. There's a fine balance, but ultimately we're here to serve a customer. That's number one job. So if you serve them what they want, you meet them in the middle. It's just sort of age old, I could sell ice to an Eskimo. It's absolute bollocks, that is, isn't it, really? Because there's got to be intent there. You're not going to walk in, Rich Pete, if you didn't need a washing machine and then someone pops up and goes, buy a washing machine, you're not going to go, well, yeah, God, now I feel like I'm going to buy a washing machine. It's meet them where they need to be served. Whereas to your point, Rich, you're in the service station, serve you an ad and we go, oh, did you know you can subscribe and save and get these delivered to your doorstep? Oh, cool. Actually, you understand me. And then when it comes through, it's like, get your supply in the next time. And actually, you might want to try some shakes because they're lovely as well. So there's your shakes flowing. Here's someone that you like having the shake as opposed to sort of maybe someone that's huge, muscular. That's not the audience we're talking to. So I go back to it and I say, yeah, let's serve the customer and meet them where they need to be met.
So in the sort of ice to Eskimos thing, and they sort of sell me this pen, the first thing you say when someone says sell me this pen is, what do you need the pen for? And then that serves the pitch. Cool.
Then you stumped when I said don't.
Move on to the next pen.
Yes.
Sales prospect.
Karen, we're going to change lanes here quite a bit, but you have touched on this a little bit earlier. You guys seem to be using AI with your data. So look, AI, it's coming in fast. It's changing shit for everybody. How's it changing it for you guys in your e-commerce and the marketing front of what you guys do at Grenade?
Yeah, AI is a buzzword, isn't it? Everyone's using it. I think some people really do understand AI and have harnessed the efficiencies. It's like, so if you use the analogy, humans, if they didn't have bikes, would be slow. Humans, if they didn't have cars, would be inefficient. What I feel with Grenade's AI journey, look, we use AI in customer experience, but what I intend to use AI for is bettering the customer experience that we feel needs bettering in terms of delivery time. So I look at DPD service emails, for example. I've no desire to have my customer experience team sat on tickets all day going, there's your delivery, there's your delivery, there's your delivery, because that is inefficient. And that's something a machine can do should you train it correctly to serve your customer better. And what would your customer say to you? I want that information quicker. I need that information quicker. Where I think people will struggle, I talk about AI and our sort of marketing strategy in a second, but where we can differentiate ourselves as humans, I think, in the AI sphere is being humans and adding that personal touch. So, with your customer experience team, get them to go to events and go, look, we'll invite our top 100 customers along. We'll talk to them. We'll interact with them. We'll add a humanistic element. And for me, it's separating the two of what can humans do well. Don't really want to be interacting with ChatGPT about their health habits because they might go, It doesn't understand me, you know. You put a few prompts in. There was I think there's a funny visual I saw the other day, and it's like show me salmons or something like that. And this AI model spat out this, oh, I don't really want to see salmons in that context. That's a little bit weird. So it's understanding what you're trying to do with AI. And the way I described it in a pod that I did recently was, it's like ambassadors, giving ambassadors a brief. You feed the model incorrectly, you give them the incorrect information, the output's going to be absolutely awful. But there are also great ways you can harness this, and that's data collation. It's where you serve the customer, talking to them in the right way, understanding your data better. But I certainly wouldn't go Wild West and kick out your entire customer experience, because that's what people want online. They want a personal feel, they want a personal touch, but don't do it in a weird way, do it in the right way. So I hope that makes sense.
I 100% agree with you. It's what I'm finding that with tools with ChatGPT, it always agrees with you. If you challenge it, it agrees with you. And it's like, I don't just want this to be a yes man. It's if you challenge it, you want it to bring different ideas. And it's like, you've almost got to then prompt it in a way to say, I always want you to challenge me. And then it will like start to do it. But then it just filters back into not challenging you and agreeing with you. And you're like, that's not useful, because ultimately what it ends up doing is just confirming your own beliefs. And you're just like, well, you know, it's exactly what the algorithms do on TikTok and Instagram. If you watch a video and you believe something, you go, oh yeah, I'm interested in that. Guess what? You're going to get a whole bunch more that are just going to confirm your beliefs. And that's why, without getting political, shit happens. And yeah, we're just got to be careful with this whole AI. But using it for data crunching and getting an understanding of data. I built out a message mining GPT the other day. It gives you amazing shit. Like, it spits out, and you're like, all I did was just feed it all the customer reviews, and it spat out the customer language. It spat out all the value propositions that maybe the brand wasn't thinking about. And you're just going, hell, I could use this now as my messaging. I can use it in my marketing. I can do whatever I want here with this stuff. But yeah, just doing it just to write blog posts is a bit silly.
I totally agree, right? Because that's where the human element comes in. It's like ChatGPT, tell me how to serve a machine, and then you're serving content that looks like a machine served it. You know, you look for a humanistic approach. It's a very bizarre thing to come out with, but I've told ChatGPT to piss off at certain times or F off. Look at the response you get from that, and you turn around and you go, that's not a human response, because if you walked up to someone in the street and said that, you'd expect to get a round of verbals back, wouldn't you? So just beat yourself out of that. Use it for what it can do. Crunch numbers. But I also don't advise going and telling sort of learning models to F off. That's probably not best practice. But
I was going to say, you're going to be the first one they come for, yeah.
Well, mate,
I'm constantly telling it not good enough.
I'm hiding in my bunker under the house. It's going to come eventually.
Do you sell stuff online? Then you need Omnisend. Yes, that Omnisend. The powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 on average for every dollar spent. Like watching steady lines go up and up and up? Just automate your email and SMS campaigns with Omnisend. Set it up once, then sit back and watch the sales roll in while you snooze. You're still awake? Then go to omnisend.com/ECC. Give Omnisend a try and start getting sales so steady they'll definitely put you to sleep. Don't forget to use code ECC30 for a 30% discount.
Seamless. Cameron, if you got off this call now and in the 53 minutes you've been on here, Grenade, someone has messed up. You've lost all of the data, tech, everything. And you've got 90 days and 10K to get back to any sort of level like you're at now. What is the first data point you go after?
That's a tricky question. I think first off, I'd be thinking, goodness me. Sorry, the thought of the question even triggering a cough. Yeah, I'd be thinking, goodness me, I'm in trouble. That'd be the first thought. But after that, I think the follow-up would be, for me, I'd start customer surveys, and I'd start to understand, what do customers want to be served with? I'd set up my flows in a way. Would I still have the understanding of the data beforehand, or would I have no understanding? It's almost like I've woken up with no knowledge of the brand.
You've got all your knowledge, you've got all your experience, you've got everything you've built up to this point, but you're thrown into a startup. How would you get those first 1,000 customers? And so you'd ask them things before, but what would you do in a sort of acquisition way to go out and get those first 1,000 customers? And what would you prioritize and why?
So I'd get all my competitors in the space, everyone I knew of, brands that were also doing things that I liked the look of, that were quite sort of organically driven, creating waves, put them all in a bit of a chart. I go, we can't do this because it's too expensive. We can't do this, but however, we can differentiate through. Let's just talk about gift with purchase. So get my differentiation methodology. I'd also then make sure my architecture on the site was right. And what I mean by architecture is the journey was right, because what I'm not going to do, I've got a minimum budget. I'm not going to chuck a load of customers onto a site I don't believe in. I've got to understand I'm going to win with differentiation. I've got to understand I'm going to convert with an offer. And then I would be very, very, my number one focus to be taking data, understanding my customer. So when they do come through the flow, set up some maybe generic flows in this circumstance, hopefully unique. I've had a bit of budget left to set up some predictive flows. And I then start informing the journey outwardly. And my measures to get customers involved would be your refer a friend, word of mouth. And I'd make sure the experience was so good and so differentiated. Might be some janky tactics in there because the budget's limited, that people would spread the word and come back. And I do strongly believe, for me, customers' word of mouth, customers' experience is what keeps them coming back. You can add strings to the bow, but if they've had a great curated experience throughout, they should hopefully come back, and they should hopefully bring back in numbers. And to be honest, I think that's how Grenade started as a brand ultimately, is listening to your customers, doing what you think is right, adjusting when you get feedback, and going again, really. So that's how I'd sort of set up, is make sure you're collecting data, make sure you're informing your customer journey, but do it with differentiation. And I think the key really is in e-commerce, don't bullshit yourself, because there's a lot of people that talk about adding value through sexy videos on the site and, well, put this person on the homepage, it'd be great. It does add to your proposition, but get the foundation right. You don't build an extension on, foundations of the house that's subsiding, get the foundation right and build up from there. And that's just a great customer journey organically, really. I'd hope that answers the question. It's a tricky one, is.
And look, in the dystopian world where this has happened, the least I can do is build some predictive flows for you. So I'll do that. Don't worry about budget.
Thank you so much.
Peter, I believe we got some questions.
We do. We have a couple, more than a couple. I'll put those on screen for you. So Samuel has asked, hi, what would you say is the worst marketing trend happening in e-commerce right now? Sam's going straight for the frigging jugular, yeah.
Honestly, I'm on my toes there. I'm on my toes this morning. I do believe it's putting products in certain influencers' hands that don't quite align with your brand values and equity. I would probably say your customers and your micros, they're your best examples, because they're your live they're using your products. You don't want someone, I don't want to call any big influencers out, but you sit in with recent campaigns and starting to get kickback because it's just becoming so obvious. You go on Love Island, teeth whitening site, there's a real association. Is that genuine, or are you just selling out for the sake of it? So for me, it's disingenuous outward content.
It's cool. We had Connor from Cozy Crew Club on a few weeks back, and he was talking about exactly what you just spoken about there. And he was saying that how he got in a bit of trouble. He didn't realize, I'm probably going to get the story horribly wrong. He didn't realize that the influencer wasn't the best person, and they ended up pumping his products. And he just kept on getting like these customer messages from the people that disliked that influencer. And he was like, shit, I've got to make sure I just don't do that again. But he didn't realize that this person was being seen in bad light. So, and I think the bad light only came after they had dealt with him, and it was like historic content coming back to Thornton. Yeah, and interesting what you're saying there with those influencers. There was a big argument at the eCom Colab Club London a few weeks back with micro versus macro influencers as well. And nobody was in agreement in that room. There were some people going, hell, we're going to pay for the best influencers and then we're going to get them to pump our products. And I was going, no, just work with the small guys, the little ones, the ones that are just, the little scrappy brands that are only scrappy influencers and content that drive more sales for you in any case. So yeah, interesting take.
We got a question from Tom. If you could ban one marketing buzzword forever, what would it be?
I think stumped me, that one has. I think referring to loyalty as a loyalty scheme. I don't like the word scheme. I think it should be a program. It should be a benefit. It's a bit of a tricky one. And the reason I say scheme is that just scheme comes across as disingenuous. I go back to that. You are what you measure. If you're measuring a scheme, it's a money-making activity. Really, if you get the loyalty program right, you're adding value. Jumping around a bit because that's hard to do. We've worked for so long getting the grenade to the loyalty program right. You've got to differentiate and make it clear. But I think scheme's a word that I don't like. That might just be my personal take on it. What do you guys think about that one? Is there any buzzwords that you're sort of looking at thinking, don't like it?
I never thought of the scheme thing, but you're absolutely right. It does suggest it's an agenda as opposed to so it's loyalty rewards, isn't it? This is, so it's more tailored towards the customer. Maybe that's where everyone is going wrong with loyalty, because generally everyone is going wrong with loyalty. I think, I can't think past your loyalty scheme. Peter, have you got anything else?
Yeah, look, I like the change from loyalty to community, right? It's not even talking about scheme. Ultimately, by saying it's loyalty, you're going, you will be loyal to me, you will not cheat on me with another brand, and you will just buy my product, and you will get 1 point for every $300 you spend with me, or whatever it is. Come on, that's not a retention strategy. That's not what you're doing. Whereas instead, if you're going, look, I'm going to build a community. And let's not say community around your brand. That's someplace on Slack where you can talk to your community with your brand. For brands, that is completely different. It's going out and having, like what you said, little events for your best customers, entertaining them, asking them questions, figuring out what they want to do, figuring out how they would love, what products they would love to see you guys develop, what problems they've got with your product, getting them involved with the product development. That's how you build that community. It's it's not everyone sitting in a circle going, oh, kumbaya, and let's do this. It's that type of thing that builds that community and that feeling of I'm invested in this brand. That's loyalty. And I just loyalty programs 100%. I think they're great, but it's just the wording around it and how brands use it that needs to change, in my opinion. And I think going more along that community sort of route with it all would be great.
Totally agreed.
On that, Brand, let's bring up one last question. What do you think is the most underrated channel for e-com growth at the moment?
There's a couple, but it is a specific question. The two I would call out is direct mail is an interesting one. I also feel like refer a friend's an interesting one. I did have a little sneak peek at some of the pods you did before, and I think direct mail, I can't remember who was debating it, but it came up. It's differentiating through your content, and direct mail is quite an interesting way to go. I've got these customers, lapse specifically win backs. Send them something through the door, because you do expect to see your bills, the boring shit you're getting through from the council. Bless them, they've got to do it, but they're sending me stuff through that they don't particularly care about, unless they're hiking my bills, which I'm typically unfortunately doing. I think it's differentiating through direct mail really for me. Make sure it's a good offer. make sure it resonates, make sure it's not disingenuous. But it's quite an interesting way to differentiate, WhatsApp, refer a friends, all those sort of things. They're becoming more and more popular, good or bad. I'm not too sure, but direct mail would probably be the one that I'd pull out there.
Yeah. It's just that you go, Rich.
I like it. Well, I like it now, and I think we've got some calls coming up about different ways to do it, because I think the cost of it has gone up a lot, like postage costs and everything like that. That has removed a lot of the trash from that direct mail market, and so now I know I get less mail, less and less. I mean, I moved house before Christmas and we messed up the redirect, so that was part of the reason. But now it's fixed. I'm still getting less. I get less trash, and I think it does now mean when something comes through, and if it's that back to that personalization, if it's tailored to me and it reminds me to do something that I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that I used to do that, then I think it absolutely can work.
Yeah, from our side, it's just another weapon in your arsenal. It's another one of those places where you get somebody to be in your playground, right? It's going, that's another touch point that I've got potential to be hitting somebody again with the marketing. And the ability to stand out. I like the rise in that, and I also like the pickup of billboards again. It's like people forgot about that, and also not digital ads, actual like TV ads. Like I see small brands coming up on like Spotify, Netflix, and you're like, hey, I remember that, but they've got a little budget on some ads on Netflix, and you're like, okay. People are starting to get these more niche because there's so much more data with those platforms like Netflix. You can target to a region. Like there's you don't have to spend your whole. If you think of ads back in the day, it was like one ad shown to the whole country during this time. Yeah. Boom! Everybody saw this ad, and you don't have to be that broad with those different channels anymore. And you can actually be a little bit more targeted of where people are going to be. But, if you've got the data and you go, shit, we got a lot of people that live in Stratford-upon-Avon that buy our products. Let's just target them with direct mail, because ultimately, if the neighbors are buying it, the likelihood of the person next door to them buying it, high, because they're probably in that same sort of demographic. Families tend to live close to families and things like that. So, yeah, I just think it's a great one.
Totally agree. And I maybe just circle back to the point of understanding your KPIs. You got an idea of your CAC. Look at what you're paying to some of these bigger businesses to acquire your customer, and just take that and utilize it elsewhere, with your direct mail, with your refer friends, with your TV ads. Because if you look at the scale of customers you're reaching and you look at the spend, you go, that is affordable and we can trial that, but only if you know that KPI.
Rich, anything else there?
No, I'm almost positive that a man like Cameron had a hard stop at 11 and he's currently 7 minutes late for his next meeting.
Yeah,
so I feel like he's been, and he's done a sterling job. And yeah, thank you ever so much. That was really, really good stuff. And I think a lot of it will have been, wow, okay, I didn't realize you could do that. A lot of it will have hopefully just have reminded people that this is what you should be doing. Like, you don't get to where Grenade has got to with like, there will be a lot of innovation and a lot of revolutionary stuff, but it's just getting those core basics right and not forgetting them as you scale. So, I think that was really, really good today. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Cameron, thank you so much for jumping on. I love the non-generic stuff that you gave us today. It's refreshing. I think you also called out a lot of bullshit. And yeah, thanks so much for being so generous with that knowledge. I think there's going to be some people that listen to this that are growing their brands, and they're going to be going, like, oh, yeah, I should try that. I've been struggling to get my acquisition going on that front. Maybe I should go look at the data on this element. Do these different little things that you've spoken about from a brand that's doing, crazy figures. But now they can then put that into their own business as well. So thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. We're not going to keep you any longer, and appreciate you coming on.
Not at all. Thank you so much, chaps. It's been really productive for myself, thought-provoking, and you are absolutely right, Rich. Unfortunately, I'm 9 minutes late for my hard start, which made me chuckle a bit. But absolute pleasure, guys. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Cameron. Cheers.
Bye. What a guy.
Awesome to have him on. We hopefully we didn't get him fired from his job, and he just have to do the whole kick thing. I always find it so harsh. What was your biggest takeaway from stuff that Cameron brought to the table today?
I think just like even at that sort of scale and size and stuff, that the fundamental big things that he wanted to sort of drive home were the basics. It's knowing your customer. Big fan of like people, and that being important as well as to who you've got in your business and why they're in your business and things like that. And yeah, just the whole know your customer. Like I just feel that if you quizzed 10 brand owners, I think you'd struggle to find half that could really, really drill down into, and I'm talking about where they've scaled and they've grown and stuff that could really, really tell you all of those sort of, I haven't heard like infinity audiences, which you mentioned using AI and stuff and said for a while now, so yeah, just really refreshing to hear that all of those things that I believe in are really, really important in a brand that I look at and see everywhere.
Yeah. It's nice. We had Pedram on last week, and he was really driving home the fact we were talking about. Oh, there we go. You got Cloris. There we go. Probably
it's my CBD. It's my CBD drop.
Want freebies. I
couldn't get through an hour and a half with you without CBD drops. My God. But yeah, like what a guy. I had the pleasure of hosting him on the panel the day before, and just enjoyed listening to him that much that then I took myself between eCom Colab Club and the meeting I was heading to his shop, just because I've got some skin irritations and stuff, and I talk a lot about anxiety, but just so passionate about his product. And like you're right, it is a freebie, and but I'm now a customer.
But he's doing that because he knows that you're going to give him feedback.
Yeah, well, and because he knows me. As soon he knows what questions to ask me, he then knows what to recommend me, and I'm damn sight sure that the next time I see him at an event, he'll follow up. And I think fundamentally that's what you've got to start with. Then it's getting to the scale that Grenade are at, and so when Cloris are there and automating and still doing those things, still asking those customers the right questions, which trigger the right product recommendations, and then trigger the right follow-ups with them afterwards to check that they've achieved the goals that they told you about achieving. And way too often, Meta is a fantastic platform, but way too often people see an ad, land on a page, drop like a funnel, like a stone through that funnel, and you don't know anything about them, just that they've got this product. And it just becomes one of the many products that's sat on dressing tables and bedrooms and stuff, and was an impulse purchase and never actually got used.
One of the things I'm pretty sad. I know we ran out of time, but Cameron was just he was dropping so much knowledge. Would have loved to have got into more with him. And I actually listened to a podcast he was on the other day where he was talking about jobs to be done, and how they use jobs to be done to figure out the information. That's what you were talking about with Pedram. Pedram doing what he does is phone calls. He's phoning everybody. Jobs to be done is that at scale, but somebody, a company like Grenade is going out and going, we'll do jobs to be done. We'll get somebody on a call at scale to get these interviews done, figuring out why people are buying from us when they're buying from us. Just like what you said. Hey, I buy it because I'm about to go on a long drive. I'm not buying it because I'm going to do a gym workout. And jobs to be done would have figured that out. They would have interviewed people like you to figure out that is actually a job that this product is fulfilling, and not, hey, this is something I need in the gym because I'm going for a big run on the treadmill for about 3 hours. It's exactly you're saying. I'm driving and I don't want to have to snack. I rather want something that's a little bit healthier before I get on the road. And that's what Pedram's doing, but at scale. Pedram's definitely coming back to you. He's before the podcast we were chatting, and he was talking to both Adam and I about like when we've had CBD products, and he was going, "Why did you have it? What were you having it for?" And it was like, this man is so passionate about this industry and his products. Just loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got good news for you. Check flights, because if you are worried that you didn't ask Cameron that question, you can come to eCom Colab Club London next month and ask him live.
So that's a long way. I might just drop him an email on.
Oh, okay.
I've got my spies there in any case, and I'll get the question asked and then just listen to the recordings. Better option? Or do you still really want me to fly all the way there?
Yeah, I might have an ulterior motive in that I just miss you. And so it would be good to have you there and see you and Adam rip it out of each other live.
Rich, you're filling in well, because you're having these goes at me constantly too.
I mean, it comes from a place of love.
Right. People don't come here to watch you gawk all over me and tell me what, with what you guys do with email marketing, what qualitative data, what quantitative data is most important to you?
It really differs by brand. I mean, everything that Cameron was saying about what we can do, what we can quiz to understand the needs of customers, to then be able, I think the most important data for us is where that person is up to on their journey. I think, the funnel thing, I think I was speaking at a conference, and I'm not going to mention where, because I got shared with the Get Better corporate bingo card while we were on this call, which if you saw me laughing, and I've been targeted. And so I'm trying to not mention any of the things on it that I would normally mention. So if I mention where that conference was that I was speaking at, then
I know what you're going to say. It's somewhere overseas because you're an international speaker now.
Yeah, you can say it. But her name's Charlie Brennan, and she did a really good talk on that at the funnel, and she used Mrs. or Mr. Messy from the Mr. Men, which is just like the squiggle of a human sort of thing. And, you look at some of the conversion paths on your attribution software and stuff, and just see how many touch points these customers that then come and spend £12 have had to make before making that purchase.
Scary.
And so I think us understanding where someone is at that journey. So with the post-purchase strategy, not assuming that somebody has come to your site and researched your founders and looked at all of your reviews and done all of these things that we think people do before making a purchase. Actually, they just saw you on Meta while they were sat on the toilet at work, made that purchase, and then it arrived 2 days later, and they don't know anything about you. So use that post-purchase first-time customer that, put a filter in place. Have they been through the welcome flow? And if not, give them that experience. Like, reverse engineer it, tell them. So I think that's probably the biggest one for me, is the understanding the point that customer is at on their journey by either them telling you quizzing them and asking them. And, look, there might be some people that say, well, you don't always have that opportunity to quiz someone about their goals. You don't have that opportunity to ask them, but you can tag what they click in an email. Like, put that in your post-purchase. Like, if you don't have the property, if you don't have the data about what their goal is with you, just put 4 big buttons in that welcome flow or in that sort of first post-purchase email that tick it to say athletic, supplements or weight loss or whatever those keto, whatever those sort of goals are, and then property tag them. So if you can't get it 0 party, get it first party and use the behavior to do it. What about you?
I want to touch on exactly what you were just saying there as well, in terms of you don't know what they've seen. Don't assume that they've seen the brand founders and things like that. What we see time and time again when we're doing A/B tests on site is the amount of information that you can have it on every page on your website. The amount of information and the amount of times that somebody would listen and they go, "Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, I didn't understand that." And we are so blind as humans interacting with a website, specifically when everything's the same as everywhere else. It's almost like subconscious that your brain will think that you've seen these things and you just go through. And I always use the example, people always say to me, when's the best time to offer that upsell? Like, everywhere. everywhere. You want to be doing it at every stage. If you're a brand that upsells are great for, 100% you should be doing it everywhere, subtly, but everywhere. Don't ruin the experience, but have it in different places on that website. Have it on your product page. Have it just below the add to cart button. When they click add to cart, in the slide out cart, have it in the slide out cart as well. Don't make them click another click, but just have it there. Just sit there, just subtly, just there it is. Go through to the checkout. Have it in checkout. And then guess what? Once you finish purchase, have it after that. And you know what, Rich? Have it in their first email. That's where you want to be. You want to be pumping those upsells constantly, because I'll tell you what, they're going to miss it on more than half of those things.
But I also think so often, and I really irritate people because you can't ask the question, what is the best time to upsell? The answer should always be, it depends. It depends where they're at on their journey with you. Like, the answer to when is best to upsell is not 7 days after an order or within 50. It depends on whether it's their first order and whether their second order is the same value as the first order or not, or whether they've moved on to subscription. Like, it always depends. And yeah, I think there is no like playbook. I think the other thing that irks me, which is kind of on the same thing, which you've just mentioned there, is, and you must see this a lot when you're asked to sort of like, oh, we need to redesign the website. We need to redesign our welcome flow, or we need to redesign our campaign emails and stuff. And why? It's like, well, it's been the same for ages. And I was like, for you, not for that person that only just discovered you and came onto your site 5 minutes ago. For them, it's brand new, and it's the same brand new that every brand new person has been having, that's been working really, really well. So yes, is there likely to be scope for better? 100%. And let's test this and let's test that. Do you need to rip it up again just because you're bored of it? No.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you see it a lot when there's new people and new roles and things like that, and maybe when there's been a brand update, people come in, okay, cool, great time for us to do this. I was like, whoa, just hold on. We can change colors. We can change typography. We can match your brand without changing pretty much anything. But unfortunately, everyone goes, no, when you rip it up, let's start again. We need a better website. And ultimately, what happens is if you don't go and look into the data and understand how people are currently using that website, what's working, what's not working, ultimately, what's going to happen is you're going to do a redesign. And those people that are repeat purchasers that have seen your website before are going to come back. They're not going to be familiar with the layout, and they might not buy. Worse, you'll mess up your SEO. And that's the last thing that you want. So redesigns are always tread carefully. It's a very, 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 very tricky time to be doing something like that. Make sure that everything's working. Make sure that you've done the research on what is working and make sure that that's still there. If you are going to change that one thing, or if you want to change that one thing, don't change it on the redesign. Go and A/B test the change after the redesign, because then you'll know if it works or if it doesn't work. But just throwing it all out and starting again, how are you ever going to know which is the thing that's working on the new app? You're just not going to know what works.
Just in the spirit of being argumentative, though, there is the third element that people do often forget to reference when it comes to quantitative versus qualitative data, and that is the gut. So, that example I gave is where the gut needs to be counteracted, and it's a three-way fight, but gut has often got you to where you've got. And so sometimes, and the best founders, and I'm sure like this will happen at Grenade, should happen in every sort of, brand where the founder is still a key part of the team, is, I hear what you're saying about this survey, and I hear what you're saying about these analytics. I'm still going to put a fucking tank in it because I just feel like it's a good thing to do. And, the fact that we're still referencing the tank now, which I'm sure was probably not something that was supported by the finance team or the brand team. And there's so many different ways that we could use this budget. I saw some really good friends of mine on the tools. I've got a really big, important mental health campaign at the moment called The Lost City, and they took a tank to Parliament. Not like, demolished it, just sort of, toot or buy outside. But the first thing I thought of is, Grenade. And
You can't,
you know,
we can't do it again.
no. Well, they can't do it again. But now the thing is, anytime I see a tank, I think grenade, and like that's to align yourself with something like that is a masterclass. But I bet it didn't feel like it at the time. There would have been no qualitative or quantitative data. So yeah,
No,
the gut still needs to be present in that battle.
but they still can't quantify that or get metrics on that. They don't know what impact that has. But a hell of a lot of people are aware of them, but you know, if you went and looked on Triple Whale right now, how are you going to understand? How are you going to understand what the tank did for you on Triple Whale? You're not going to understand. Where does that even come into the playground?
It comes in the none of the above free type box.
And how many things are coming in there? Yeah, it's the AO example, and you know, it's exactly the same with a free product. Somebody had to take a gut decision on that. But I would say gut decisions as well are, that's an experiment. Let's go and experiment with this. We're not going to be able to know immediately. Maybe we'll know one day, but yeah. I agree with you. Gut feeling does need to come into it because sometimes data is completely incorrect.
It does feel weird when you agree with me.
I try not to. Well, mate, look, thanks so much for stepping in for the Mr. Pierce while he takes a lovely little holiday somewhere, who knows where, and is probably in a jacuzzi. Who knows what he's doing with himself at the moment.
I mean, yeah, the mind boggles.
He owes you a box of chocolates or something.
He owes me a re-edit of the titles if I'm ever coming on again. Yeah,
if you're ever coming on again, you want to be as posted by Rich Evans.
Yeah, and yeah, a bowl of M&Ms with all the red ones picked out, and I want to be on the titles.
What's your
my
beef
demand.
with the red ones?
It's the football thing. I'm an Everton fan. Don't like Liverpool.
I'm just going to shake my head. Everybody, Thanks for listening. Appreciate everybody jumping on, listening to the podcast. If you're listening to this live or if you're listening to the recording, please make sure you like, subscribe, or wherever you are, whichever platform, YouTube, Spotify, or hey, LinkedIn. Just carry on joining us here. Thanks very much. Cheers. Thanks, Rich. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the eCom Collab Club podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join our community at ecomcollabclub.com/community.